put this on. Are we recording?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He needed to hear you, so.
Should I wait?
We'll say on the Miami Vice theme, you guys have a rocket tubs look with the pink and light blue.
That's nice. Did you plan this?
Yeah.
Cute.
You can borrow my glasses if you want.
I don't see don't I usually get like a little red light or something when that goes?
Well, we are recording on this.
We are? Okay.
It's just, oh, there we go.
There we go. Okay. Okay, so welcome to this regular meeting of the Ashland School Board for July 9th, 2026. I hereby call this meeting to order. As a reminder, in accordance with public meeting law, this meeting is being recorded and will become part of the public record. So we will start with the land acknowledgement, and I think I'm just going to go ahead and read it tonight since we have no students here. We acknowledge that the sacred land that we live and learn on today belongs to the Takelma, Shasta, Modoc, Klamath, and Umpqua peoples. We honor and acknowledge the traditional owners of the land we now call the United States. We recognize the Native American people's continuing connection to land, place, waters, and community. We pay our respects to their cultures, country, and elders, past, present, and emerging. Okay, so first item will be to adopt the agenda. So everyone has had a chance to review the agenda, and I will take I will take a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
I move to approve the agenda as submitted.
Second.
All in favor? Oh, I forgot to do roll call, which is very convenient because here comes Jordan. Okay, so let the record show that all 5 board members are now present. Okay, next up we have the organization of the board for the 2026-2027 school year. So item number 1, drum roll please, will be to elect a board chair. And I will delightedly I will make a nomination. Can I do that? I nominate Russell Hatch as board chair for the 2026-2027 school year.
I would like to second that.
Do I just do an all in favor? Is that all we need? All in favor? Thank you. Hallelujah. All right. Okay. Next, we will elect a vice chair, and I will take nominations for vice chair.
I would like to nominate Rebecca Dyson for vice chair.
And I'd like to second that with a lot of pleasure and gratitude for your tremendous leadership.
Thank you,
Over
Deltra.
so long.
I appreciate that.
Yep.
All in favor? Do we vote for ourselves? Okay. Here we are. So, with absolute joy, I hereby pass the gavel down and let Russell take over this meeting.
All right.
Do you accept, Russell?
I do
Is that-
accept.
Oh, good. Oh, thank God.
Next item on the agenda is action item resolution number 2026-27B1 annual designations. I would accept a motion to approve.
So moved?
I'll second.
All in favor? Right. Okay. Moving right along. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. So just for context, the consent agenda consists of routine items that have been provided to the board in advance for review. Board members have had the opportunity to review these materials prior to today's meeting. If any board member wishes to discuss an item separately, please request that it be removed from the consent agenda at this time. Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor? Thank you.
And I just would love to relax the rules real quick to say thank you to admin for the time you guys spent over the holiday weekend answering our questions and getting all everything thoughts filled in.
You're welcome.
Wow, moving right along. Okay, next up, we have a presentation, City of Ashland Planning Department report.
Good evening, newly appointed chair, board members. My name is Brandon Goldman. I'm the Community Development Director for the City of Ashland. And with me this evening is Linda Reed. She's the city's housing program specialist. And I'd start with saying, as she's getting the presentation up, that we appreciate the board's hearing us this evening and putting us on tonight's agenda. We're here to share information about a potential program that would allow low-income housing projects owned by nonprofit corporation to be exempt from property taxes, and to explore the school district's interest in partnering with the city on this initiative. The City Council directed us to bring this to the school board because ultimately the participation is essential to making the program work as intended in order to have both of the largest taxing districts that would impact the low-income housing projects participate. So Linda is going to walk us through the details of the program, including who it would serve, how it works, and what the fiscal impacts would be to the district. And after that, we're both here and happy to answer any questions that you may have. And with that, Linda.
Good evening, school board members, and thank you for having us here tonight again. So as Brandon said, we're just going to touch briefly on this program that has already been presented to the Ashland City Council, and now we're coming to you to ascertain your interest in it. Okay, so over the years, the state legislature has authorized several property tax exemptions for needed housing. Local option property tax exemptions are one tool local jurisdictions can use to help incentivize and make financially viable affordable housing developments in our communities. Without these exemptions, some affordable housing projects would not be feasible or would necessitate higher rents or more public subsidy. The nonprofit corporation low-income housing tax exemption was originally adopted by the state in 1985 under ORS 307.540 through 548. And while there is no comprehensive list of cities in Oregon that currently have an incentive of this kind, we do know that there are at least 9 other communities that currently offer such an incentive, including the city of Medford. This program allows for a property exemption, tax exemption for low-income housing developed by nonprofit affordable housing providers, serving households earning 60% of the area median income or below. And just for reference sake, that's about $60,000 a year for a family of 4, or around a little under $50,000 for a family of 2. The exemption can be applied to both existing housing and to new development, and may also include land held for future affordable housing development. Local jurisdictions are permitted to adopt additional eligibility criteria, provided they are not inconsistent with the requirements set forth in the state law. While annual applications are required, so each affordable housing development has to reapply every year to be approved for the exemption, there is no limit on the length of time a property can remain exempt, so long as it continues to meet the eligibility requirements. City staff presented this information to the City Council at their regular meeting in May of at a study session in May of last year. And at that time, as Brandon said, the City Council directed staff to reach out to the school board to gauge your interest in collaborating with the city on such an incentive. This exemption is consistent with a few state policies and city priorities. The housing production strategy is a document that many of you may not be familiar with, but it is a state mandated plan that identifies a number of actions that a community will take to achieve its housing needs as identified in the housing capacity analysis. There are two strategies that are related to the adoption of an ordinance to subsidize and/or reduce costs to encourage the development of needed housing types. Strategy K, which is work with partners to support the development of additional permanent supportive housing, and Strategy I, which is implement the multiple unit property tax exemption, which is also known as a MUPD, but we don't have to go into that too deeply. Let's see. So we'll get to the fiscal impacts. The property tax exemption would reduce the revenue to the city and the school district that you both receive from property taxes and special assessments. Low income that are taken from the low-income rental housing units owned by nonprofit entities. As stated previously, this exemption is not automatic. Nonprofit entities would need to apply to receive the exemption, and this could impact any future revenue from newly developed affordable housing that meets the criteria as well. Currently, there are only 42 units of affordable housing owned by nonprofit entities that will qualify for this exemption. The total tax revenue from those 42 units is just under $26,000, of which the school district's portion is just under $9,000, with just over $3,000 in special assessments. The majority of the affordable housing stock in Ashland that has been developed in recent years and over the last couple of decades has been developed by the Housing Authority of Jackson County and Access. Public housing authorities are already exempt from paying taxes under a different state statute. And some affordable housing providers, including Access, have also been granted an affordable or a tax exemption through the county. Based on the development patterns from the past 25 years, the city does not anticipate the development of many more affordable housing units owned by nonprofit affordable housing providers that will also be targeted to households earning 60% of the area median or below, and which are not developed by a housing authority or an entity that's already receiving a tax subsidy. So the next steps for this process would be approval of the tax exemption by both the City of Ashland and the Ashland School District would meet the 51% threshold, as Brandon explained, which would allow the program to offer a full property tax exemption to the entities that qualify. And we will come back to the council and let them know the outcomes of this discussion and any comments or concerns that the school district has. So that is pretty much, oops, I forgot. I was talking too much and I didn't flip through the visual parts of the presentation. So certainly, if you have any questions about any of that, it was a lot of information, I'm sure, but we're happy to answer any questions. And I can go back into the slides that we skipped over.
I don't have a question, but I do want to point out to my colleagues that the affordable housing generates more students for us than other types of housing, and one student added is more revenue for the district than that property tax hit.
So I would note something we didn't cover in the presentation. The City of Ashland had worked with Jackson County Assessor's Office prior to 2022 to offer a tax reduction for all affordable housing that was located in Ashland, owned by nonprofit organizations. And so it was brought to our attention by Columbia Care, a nonprofit affordable housing provider, that their 29-unit development behind Rogue Credit Union, which previously would have been afforded those tax exemptions, was no longer being granted them. And so in reaching back out to the assessor's office, they did indicate that under the ORS that Linda referenced, it actually requires cities to opt in to the program. And although we'd been benefiting from it for a number of years, we'd not formally opted in, which is what began this conversation at the request of that nonprofit organization. So we can't predict in the future how many affordable housing providers would be looking to develop in Ashland. What we can recognize is that every financial incentive to help them choose to locate in Ashland is of benefit to them making that site location choice. And so we have offered waivers of systems development charges through the city, 100% for any affordable housing development in Ashland, which comes out of City of Ashland funding. The added tax exemption may not be a decision point that is in and of itself a point, but when looking at doing a project in Medford or in Ashland, if one offers a tax exemption and one does not, obviously that's going to work into the project pro forma for the affordable housing development. So in a sense, we're trying to remove barriers for that site location decision for affordable housing developers to let them realize that developing in Ashland benefits our community, and we're willing to look at what we can do within our discretion to support it.
So I have a question, and I want to preface that. I have to do this so that I can read, and then I put them back on so that I can see you.
I'm just the opposite.
Oh, is that right? Okay, there we go. So I'm reading your letter, and it says that it says over the next 25 years, it is expected that the amount of taxes the school district will forego will be approximately $13,000 per year.
Oh, did I write that?
Yes, you did indeed. I think I'm reading it right.
No, I think you're reading that correctly, too.
Okay.
So there was a question at the council where they asked us to look into the future and sort of see how much revenue would be lost over the next 25 years. And if we looked at that and we assumed that we would get the same amount of development in the next 25 years that we had in the last 25 years, then that would essentially double the amount. I did not do the calculation for tax increases, however, so there's probably a little loss for that, but that's where that 13,000 number comes from, because right now it's a little bit less than that. Half.
So then it says, the next sentence says, however, it is our understanding that any lost funding will be backfilled by the state. That's interesting. Where does that come from? Why do you believe that? Why will the state backfill?
So I don't believe the state backfills lost property tax revenue, but I do believe there's a statewide allocation of funding, and perhaps school board members would be able to articulate on that.
Yes. So there's the state school fund that we get all of the dollars to operate the district from is offset by property taxes.
Yes.
Locally. So if we have a particularly high income area that's getting a lot of property tax, then we don't get as much from the state because we're supported locally. But if we diminish what we're collecting locally, the state may.
That's the backfill.
Of the general fund, right? And so then the part that would not be backfilled would be the levy, right? And
Yeah.
but that's
That was my
a
understanding as
smaller
well.
portion
Yeah.
of the pie.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know, I mean, to me, this seems like obviously the potential benefit to us, hopefully, is certainly far outweighs the cost at this point. You know, if we do get increased development, that's going to bring in more students. And as Dan said, per student, that's our AMDW is about 10,000, I believe, per student. Is that correct? Somewhere around there, ballpark. So I'm just curious, you mentioned that Medford is a part of this program. Are other local communities, do we know?
I have not heard that any other community locally, like Phoenix Talent, Central Point, Eagle Point, I haven't heard that they have passed this at this time. And it may be, I don't even know if they're considering it. You know, the city of Ashland has an affordable housing program, which is why I'm here and what this is falling under. And I think as Brandon alluded to, I mean, our program is about leveraging as much as we can to try to bring that development here and to have that housing sited here. And it is difficult that Medford has this already and we do
Right.
not.
Yeah.
So it makes us less competitive. many years ago, well, for many years, we've had a system development charge deferral program, and Medford did not have that. And we had heard from affordable housing providers that that subsidy essentially that we provided was the reason that they were able to purchase more expensive land in Ashland, because in the end, it was a wash. And now Medford also has a system development charge deferral program, and they also have the CET, construction excise tax, which I think generates about $1 million in funding for them to provide for affordable housing providers. So it is getting more difficult for Ashland to compete. We don't have as many resources as Medford does, and so it's harder for us to sort of subsidize the cost of developing affordable housing, especially like lower income affordable housing, because that requires a larger subsidy, and we also know that there are many subsidy programs that are going away. So all of that being said, this is just another tool that we're hopeful that we can bring to the table to help create that package deal that brings development here.
Yeah. Okay, so, and then one other question, I think you said that this program started sometime in the 1980s, 1987 maybe, and then extended in 2011. So does that mean it periodically has to be reapproved?
Yes, so I believe the state legislature has to reapprove it when it expires. So it expired in 2011 and it was extended. It's also due to expire again in 2027. But I feel pretty hopeful that it will get extended, especially with all of the state support for affordable housing and removing barriers and trying to help cities create affordable housing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I'd like to ask another question. It says that approval by both the City of Ashland and the Ashland School District would meet the 51% threshold of overlapping taxing jurisdictions required for the program to offer a full property tax exemption. So is this, I guess I need to know more information. Has the city brought this in front of, it's been brought in front of the council, so it's been made public. Have you experienced pushback from the city at all, or from the residents, or from the citizenry at all, but because of concern, the not in my neighborhood kinds of concerns and things like that? Or is it pretty much, hey, this is a cool solution? What have you got?
Yeah, I would say that neither at the council meeting nor subsequent to it have we heard from citizens with any opposition to this program.
Okay.
It doesn't change the eligible use of properties where affordable housing, or housing for that matter, could be cited.
Right.
It really is a financing tool for the affordable housing unit. So I wouldn't anticipate in Ashland that we'd get citizen concern over it, but again, I've been wrong in the past, so.
Yeah, right. Okay, thank you.
I have just a couple logistical questions. One line in the presentation states that local governments, City of Ashland, have the option to increase the eligible income threshold to 80% of AMI. What would trigger that, and would there, if we opt into it, does the district have a say in that adjustment? If that adjustment happens, how does that process work?
That's a really good question. I don't believe you can make that adjustment until you've had your program in place for over a year.
Okay.
So I think at that time, if it were important to you and it were being considered, we could come back and check in with you all about how you feel about that. The 80% threshold, since these are only multifamily units that are, essentially they have to be rental units because they have to be owned by a nonprofit organization. And I can't think that there are a lot of affordable rental, multifamily rental units that are developed at the 80% level, because most of the funding is tax credit funding, and tax credits specifically cite the 60% of area median income level. And so definitely like the MUPD is an 80% for-profit program. So that's something that is also in our housing production strategy for us to explore, which it makes a bigger net, essentially, right? Like there'll be more units that would qualify in a program like that. And so that would be another consideration. And I think at that time, we would have to look at the impacts of that. And I think if we ever thought of raising it to 80%, we would definitely sort of crunch the numbers and see what the fiscal impacts are of that increase. And we could certainly come back and talk with you about that at that time. But I don't know that that would happen.
And I would add that if the school district were in favor of pursuing this program, it could be stipulated that that was in consideration of 60% AMI or below, and that should the city be interested in modifying that, that conditionally the school board was requesting that that come back to the school board for consideration, and I'm sure the council would be receptive to that.
So can you just walk me through what the process would be, like, what you're looking for from us specifically tonight, and then would there be another point where this would come back to us, where we'd be voting on it, or how does it go from here?
Yeah, I mean, it is obviously at the discretion of the board. If you feel that you're comfortable with directing that you're in favor of the city pursuing this, the city could move forward with it. You could do so, and with the expectation that we come back to the board with the final ordinance for adoption and get a recommendation from this board before going to the city council for final adoption and implementation. And so I think either scenario works. If you want to see it again, we're happy to come back. If you feel that you have enough information at this point to make a final recommendation, again, we can take that to the city council for their consideration.
How do you feel about the scenario of the tentative approval, at least conceptual approval, with it coming back for final approval before anything is passed? And that gives us a chance to have our CFO just confirm the numbers.
Yeah, I feel much better about that. And I would love, in the interim as well, if our board could receive any more information that might help with understanding how this functions. I appreciate the estimated loss of the $13,000, and I just would love something that feels more like this, I don't know, just a little more solid ground on that somehow. Yeah. And maybe, enough, I've said.
And I just want to share with you all, checked, it's not an actual conflict of interest or a potential conflict of interest, but since this is a request coming from my employer, I'm going to just abstain from discussion or voting on this topic.
Got one more question, because I'd be curious about timelines. When, so it would go to city council to propose or adopt an ordinance that would then come to us before we approved our buy-in, I guess. But like, how long would that take? Like, when would it get back on city council schedule?
We'd be looking to bring back the comments that you provide this evening to the city council in September, if we can get on a council agenda at that point, and with then get their direction as to whether to direct staff to proceed with developing the full ordinance, in which case, assuming that they are favorable, we would come back to this body in October or November, and then to council at the beginning of the new year for adoption. Our timeline in terms of having this in place is in order to either have it in place or make the decision not to prior to the next taxing year, which does run from July 1 through June 30th. And so we do have time for whatever iterative process comes out of this.
All right. Well, I'm definitely comfortable with moving forward and having it come back to us in October.
So I'll just reflect back what I'm hearing and correct anything that's wrong. I'm hearing that we're, in general, in support of the concept. We would like to see the final ordinance, assuming that the city also buys in before there's official approval. And we'd have an opportunity during that gap to confirm all data and have our CFO review.
Understand a little bit more.
Okay. Well, if that sounds right to everyone, I'd take no, okay. Then that's our comments.
Thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for the clear direction. We really appreciate that. We'll see you in October, hopefully.
All right. Thank you both for your time. Appreciate it. Moving right along, our next item on the agenda is the finance report.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. So you have the report in your packet, and as I noted in my comments, there isn't really anything super dramatic to share for June either. On our revenue side, we did get about 50,000 more in flow-through dollars from the ESD, and that was due to the fact that we didn't use as much of their service as what we had anticipated when the budget was originally built last year for 25-26. So that was good. That was a nice little boost there. And again, this is just the detail showing that this is where our actuals are at for revenue right now. We are in the midst of the interim audit. That's mainly looking at our title funds and IDEA. And so as they work through their process and then move on to the full audit, there could potentially be adjustments made, which is a very common thing that happens during the audit. On our expenditure side, again, I noted that there was nothing concerning on the expenditure side. We didn't have any unusual expenses that came in that we weren't anticipating during the month of June. We're projecting the ending fund balance right now at 3.5 million. That's a little over 8%. And again, like I mentioned, as we work through the audit process, there will definitely be adjustments. There always are. So I'll have a final report for 25-26 once we're through the audit. So that will be a report that you'll get when we're reporting on the audit as well. And again, this is just our actual projected for the full year. So we don't have any encumbrances showing because we're not doing any additional spending that would obviously reflect back for the 25-26 school year. We do have bills that come in after the end of June, and so those are mostly reflected in the projections, but there's always something that comes in after the end of the school year that we end up making adjustments for. So usually nothing significant and nothing that I am anticipating that's going to be significant at all. And then this is our appropriation compliance, and you can see that we are looking good on all fronts. Again, pretty boring report, nothing dramatic that I am seeing at this point. And then special revenue the same. We still have some outstanding receivables that from ODE and various other sources. We still haven't received our reimbursement for outdoor school from Oregon State University, but they have approved our final report and they are just in the process of generating payments for that. So again, nothing that is concerning me at all on the special revenue side. And then I put the cash flow in just for your information so that you can see that we are still in a good cash flow position. And as part of my work, as I go throughout the summer and work my way through the audit, I am monitoring cash flows so to ensure that we have enough cash the end of October because we don't get our first big property tax payments until November, and that is all looking good. I don't see that we're going to have any cash flow issues at all. So that is my report. Do you have any questions?
Sherry, I have a really quick question that's totally a memory-based one. So if you don't remember, I'll follow up via email. Now that we have more surety around our ending fund balance, do you remember what our beginning fund balance estimate was for the upcoming budget, for the budget we passed?
It was 3.5 million.
Okay, perfect. Spot on. Thank you, Sherry.
Yep.
I was excited to see as we got through the school year, it go from just under 8% to ending at just over 8%, which is our board mandated number. And we get no credit for that, but you get credit for that and you get credit for that. So thank you.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, and that's the first time we've seen that in quite some time.
All right, congratulations on coming in under budget. Thank you.
Yep, thank you guys.
All right, next item on the agenda is board reports. Do you want to start us off as usual, Dan?
Sure, under new leadership, we'll still continue the same, starting on this end. I don't have a lot to report. There was 2 things that I did that were board-related this month, and it was, unless I'm forgetting something, policy work group, which is not insignificant. We spent a few hours going through crunching policies that y'all will see probably in a couple months. And I was in the 4th of July parade with a couple of my colleagues, and that's what I have to report.
Yes, it was a quiet month. Enjoyed a family gathering up at Hyatt Lake, and I've been having fun watching the World Cup. That's not board related, but it's healthy, good stuff. So I've had the pleasure of 1 or 2 one-to-ones with my colleagues, which I find always very valuable. Dan mentioned the policy meetings, and then also I've been attending the TSC, the Transformation Subcommittee meetings, and there was one in June, on June 29th, and I was there as an observer and a listener. The other thing that I'm going to share out to the public, in case strangely someone's listening, I tallied the time I've spent in this first year of service to the school board, just for fun. Just by looking at my calendar and kind of looking at the black, or not, they're not black, they're blue. The blue chunks that were there, 330 hours, not including meeting prep, travel time, and parading. I didn't put parading in. That's an average of 27.5 hours per month, with an ebb and flow between 47 hours in the busiest month to 18 hours in the slowest month. So that was kind of interesting. I decided to share that out, and I'm hopeful that we'll attract more energy to this board. It's important work, and it'll be good to bring people on board who are ready to help out our schools and our teachers. And I know that that's awfully important, and that everybody can do it. So there are people out there who can do it. Yep. That's it.
Ashland has a lot of parades.
If I counted my parades, I'd be way over there.
Now, I'm going to ask you, does that include time spent on email? Because, for me, that's a huge one. But not to scare anybody away. Yeah. Okay, so let's see. Yes, I also had a month of doing some other things. I went to Alaska for a week to hang out with the fat bears. So that was my health-related activity. Yep, that was awesome. I went to the Transformation Steering Committee meeting with Deltra and Russell, also, again, as observers. Very interesting. And very, actually, I thought it was great. Very congenial, very positive. It was nice to see. And then I also did the parade, and I also did the 4th of July run that comes before the parade, which maybe I shouldn't mention because I believe it benefits our rivals, the Phoenix Talent cross-country team, but it's still a school-related activity, right? So I'll count that. And then I'm going to throw in a shameless plug. Most of you know or know of my son, James, who has been through extensive cancer treatment. And on July 31st, he is putting on a benefit concert. And I will just add, he is a graduate of the Ashland School District, of course, as are all my kids. He will be putting on a benefit concert for the Make-A-Wish Foundation at the SOU Recital Hall at 7 o'clock. Free to the public. There will be some guest stars. And of course, we welcome donations to the Make-A-Wish Foundation. So I'll be sending out emails to all of you guys. And that's it.
Thanks. Hi all, happy summer. Something that I've been very engaged in this past month is just the changes that are going on in our preschool and childcare. We are having 2 of our preschool and childcare providers have announced that they will be closing their doors. One particularly has both infant and toddler care, which is highly rare. The YMCA is making adjustments. They're expanding their classrooms, and we have a new childcare provider from Talent who will be moving into Ashland that does provide toddler care. But still just very aware that our pipeline into our kindergarten is what can best boost our kindergarten enrollment, so keeping a close eye on that and seeing how we can keep what we have and grow it more.
I will share the sentiment that the Transformation Steering Committee, which I got to observe one meeting of, was a very positive experience. I was particularly happy to note, though it was congenial discussion, there was push back and forth on different topics, which I think is very, very healthy for a weighty topic. I was happy to be there as a board member to be able to observe the process, though I'm not a participant in the process, I'm just an observer. It gives me comfort and confidence that good work is being done, and I look forward to the outcome. Other than that, I'm continuing to help out with a building project at our kids' school. So that's taking my weekends a little bit. Moving right along, Superintendent Report and Transformation Update.
All right, good evening. I have a surprisingly lengthy Superintendent Report, so here we go. First, I'll go with some of the activities. So I'm currently serving on 3 COSA work groups through summer and fall. So an instructional time executive order work group, virtual online programs work group, and education funding work group. They're all riveting, but super important. Also completed all principal and cabinet annual evaluations before June ended. Our policy work group met on July 2nd. Our new Director of Student Services began on June 29th. Attended a Rotary event, also attended a welcome dinner for the Guanajuato delegation hosted by the Amigo Club, and also attended the Coalition of Oregon School Administrators Conference in Seaside. And sadly attended my final equity board meeting as past president with the equity board. I'm also going to share a little bit about the facilities projects that are going on this summer. It is busy. So carpets, AHS Science and Library, and the second floor classrooms. Asphalt and seal coating is happening at AMS Bus Loop, Helman Bus Loop, Walker Bus Loop, Bellevue Parking Lot, and AHS Athletics Access, the Titus Alley. Boiler replacement at AHS Gym Building. Alarms at AMS 7th and 8th grade, and gym connected to the new construction, as well as replacing the district office alarms. Concrete work at AHS Gym Stairs on Mountain Avenue, AHS IA Building Southwest Side, and the district office front and side. Safety and security upgrades, Bellevue access control and cameras, Willow Wind access control and cameras, Ashland High School additional cameras, tech access controls and transportation cameras. Also, Ashland High School continued quad improvements and Ashland High School English building awnings. So there's a lot happening. So way to go, team. Thank you for all your work. I also want to share a little bit. This is new. So it was brought to my attention yesterday that our Ashland High School online program needs to be reviewed as students have not been making sufficient progress due to lack of engagement with our particularly Edgenuity program. The board previously adopted Edgenuity and Apex as its curriculum. Policy IIA has a provision allowing the superintendent to authorize the pilot of a new curriculum if the adopted curriculum is not meeting student learning targets. So I'm working with the principal and his team to determine the best course of action. Based on student data, the Grizzly Online consulted with me about this a possibility of a pilot online platform. And so during the August board meeting, I'm prepared to have the high school staff or leadership team present the data that informed this decision, as well as a program chosen to be piloted for the 26-27 school year in addition to Edgenuity. I think it'll be important to do kind of a comparative analysis between the two to see which one performs better with our students. The benefit of this is it'll meet our virtual program requirement that requires, so if you remember, Oregon has a 3% cap on virtual transfers. Ashland School District has met the 3%, although in order to, if we're to deny a request, we also have to provide 2 virtual options. So by having the pilot and Edgenuity, we'll have 2 virtual options to provide to our families. So they'll be able to pick which one best fits their needs. So this is really helpful for that purpose and to be able to help our families and our students to figure out what model works best for them. So that is covered in policy IIA and IIA-AR. Instructional materials, and it does talk about the curriculum adoption and the process if it's not meeting student needs. So we'll bring a presentation forward in August about a pilot program for Grizzly Online only. Question on that before I move on?
I guess I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
So number one, how many students is that are in the Grizzly Online? Do we know?
I don't
Just
have
a ballpark.
20.
Yeah, it's not a huge number.
No.
So was this like a red flag that came up? I'm just curious, like, I mean, what does that really mean? Are they not passing, or was it just like below?
Yeah, it's low passage rates because of engagement. So that means they're not logging in as much. They're not meeting the attendance requirements as much. They're needing to be prompted a lot more. And so I'll have them present all of that data.
Okay, yes, thank you.
Not a problem at all. And then my transformation update. So the Transformation Steering Committee met last on June 29th. The primary goal of the meeting was to review survey responses from the community survey that closed on June 25th, June 28th, the night before. Huge thank you to everybody who completed the survey. It ended up being a little bit more robust than anticipated, but we're doing very grassroots. And so we developed it, and it was taking people anywhere between 30 and 45 minutes to complete. So thank you, everybody who did it. We received 556 responses, and that makes up about 20% of our families. During the meeting, we reviewed 981 narrative responses that came from 3 questions. So almost 1,000 qualitative responses. The questions were, what creative solutions should the district explore to become more financially sustainable while remaining true to Ashland's values and commitment to students? The second question, imagine Ashland School District in 10 years from now. What would make you proud to say your district became a model of educational excellence, innovation, and sustainability? And third, what bold or innovative changes should Ashland School District consider to strengthen student learning, attract families, and ensure long-term success? The groups, the committee broke up into groups, and they identified themes, questions that needed to be answered from the survey responses, as well as what suggestions or ideas should be explored further. I'm currently working through the lists. It's we had got a stack. And then, after all that was done, I also utilized AI to summarize all of the survey responses, quantitative and qualitative, and to see if I could get one succinct theme. And it's interesting, so I'm just going to read it. It says, the Ashland community appears ready to support meaningful structural change, provided it results in a financially sustainable district that delivers outstanding academics while preserving the arts, excellence, community partnerships, and the distinctive educational character that makes Ashland unique. And that was really true to the responses that we were receiving. So it'll be interesting as we dig further into that. We have a meeting scheduled next Friday, and I'm working to determine what that plan is. We've got a couple different options, possibly a guest presenter, or distribute some research assignments in lieu of an in-person meeting. It's really going to depend on what the findings are. I've blocked out the next 4 days to be 8 hours a day of just transformation to determine what is going to be the best use of our time. So more to come on that. I would be happy to answer any questions on my report.
I just wanted to go back to the facilities thing. That was an enormous number of impressive projects. So just curious, is that falling under the residual bond money that we have, or is that a separate expense to the district?
I believe it's a combination, but Steve has his hand up.
Okay, thanks.
We'll put a pin in that question.
Great. I have 2 transformation committee questions. Are you able to see in those 556 responses we got, how many of those are from families versus community at large?
Yep, I have that data, and
Cool.
because I haven't had the results for long enough, I haven't pulled out the quantitative, but I'll have a report on that.
Cool. My other question is what, in the last 2 weeks, I've been approached by folks who have ideas, want to be engaged in the process, want to share, one was at Rotary today, we're going to get coffee for her to share her thoughts.
Nice.
What is the right place to have people engage, or if I get really great feedback, how can I submit it to the Transportation Steering Committee? What's the right message? Yeah.
Did we post an email on the website or not? Not yet. Okay, there will be an email on the website.
Okay.
So that's going to be the best way to do it.
Okay.
So remember, all of the information is on our website, both schools and district, and we'll make an email available there.
Great, and they can just submit comments and thoughts via email.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very
Yep,
much.
and that email address will be found on the website.
I thought the surveys were
The
closed.
survey is closed right now, but there will be future surveys. Oh, yeah.
Right.
Lots of surveys.
Yes.
Yeah.
But there will be an email address, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you. Moving right along. We do not have any public comment, correct? Okay. And nor do we have any unfinished business. So moving right along to new business. Action item 2026-2029 AEA Collective Bargaining Agreement.
I'm going to just cover some of the highlights really quickly. So this bargaining session, I think, was very successful. It was a positive, thank you, Steve. It was a positive environment, good to work together. Happy to share that we have settled on a 3-year contract with the licensed union. So it'll be 26 to 29. Just a couple key changes that you'll see in the contract, and hopefully you've all had a chance to read it. One, in Article 6, Classroom Learning Space, Control and Discipline, you'll see that it mentions that members will annually receive and be provided with an administrator-scheduled review of the school discipline and safety plans, obviously a best practice, and so something that we wanted to have anyway. And then the second one is subject to FERPA. Members with legitimate educational interest will be notified as soon as possible of behaviors that could prevent safety problems to students or members once we receive that information. Sometimes there's lag in receiving student information, but that'll be shared when we're able to do that. Next, in Article 10, professional and additional duties. Hey, Steve, would you? Thank you. Additional pay must be pre-approved by administrator. Thank you. Part-time members will attend all in-service training, definitely prioritizing professional development that's scheduled outside their working hours. All efforts will be made to accommodate special circumstances, and then full-time members share responsibility for grade level and school-wide activities, site committee work, and support extracurricular activities when possible. Next, Article 13. Thank you. 403B is no longer mandatory. It used to be automatically signed up for, so now it's an option. Match increased $5 a month for months 1 through 240. Article 26, insurance. Obviously, we've had some insurance changes. We've added an opt-out incentive to $400 a month. We've sunsetted the Health Promotions Committee, and open enrollment begins August 15th. Article 25, compensation, providing a 3% COLA for the next 3 years, and that is in addition to any employee that's on steps 1 through 18 also has the 3.25% step, which is just great. So 18.75% increase over the next 3 years for those employees that are on steps 1 through 18. Really excited about that. That makes our salaries very competitive, if not better than our surrounding districts. And then new emergency closure language for part-time employees. If schedule is not impacted by 2-hour delay, report at regular time. Article 15 increased the ideal averages. Elementary, 20 at kinder, 21 at first, 22 second and third, and 24 4 and 5. And then you'll see the max contacts adjustments in 6 through 12 for both classroom and PE and music. Next, continue with Article 15, special programs. We also are going to be making every effort not to exceed the following, and that's based on a full-time FTE. So elementary resource, secondary resource, site-based programs, speech language pathologist, and ELD. And then continued, just some additional information about special education teachers, and then CDS and counselor caseloads, as well as school psychs. And one more, Article 15. Yeah. Which is just talking about, if an educator finds that a classroom size, caseload composition creates instructional imbalance, they bring them to their administrator for discussion and start to have a discussion about how to remedy those. And we listed out some possible remedies, so it's important to have those dialogues with your supervisor. Article 14, working schedule. This talks about in-service days scheduled prior to the start of the student contact year. Member-directed time shall be provided in no less than 2-hour blocks. We also provided an option for if no substitutes available, members may elect to cover a class during their prep time. Members will be paid their hourly rate for all time spent covering a class. In the event of a substitute shortage, the district will exhaust all available options for class coverage before assigning students to other members. If the class is split between other classroom teachers, the members splitting the class shall split the substitute rate. In months when there's an open house, rather than using the PLC time for PLCs, that PLC time will be used for preparing for the open house or teacher conference. And then PLC time must be dedicated to the 4 essential PLC questions, which for reference is, what do we want all students to know and be able to do? How will we know if they learn it? How will we respond when some students do not learn? And how will we extend the learning for students who are already proficient?
I have a quick question, if you
Sure.
don't mind, on the substitution shortage.
Mhm.
I know with paid leave Oregon, we've increased significantly our use of substitutes. Have we been running into substitution shortages over the last year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Article 16, paid leaves. A grant of sick leave of more than 5 consecutive days may require written medical verification, and supervisors may approve personal leave in hour increments when a substitute is not needed. So that really applies to like an end-of-day appointment, something like that. Member rights, just cause provision. Parties agree that it's in everyone's best interest that a rep be present during all meetings related to investigations or discipline or meetings that could lead to discipline. Obviously, a best practice always. And if a question or concern about grades arises, the administrator will work with the member to address the question or concern. Grades won't be changed without consultation between the member and the administrator. Or if a teacher is not available to do so, this doesn't apply. So, for instance, if they're no longer an employee or something like that. And then finally, Article 22. We spent a lot of time just really wanting to make sure that there's no lack of clarity. And so define transfer, reassignment, as well as just voluntary transfer procedures around flexibility. So that was very, very clear. Historically, it hasn't been super clear. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Well, I wanted to thank not only the district bargaining team, but also the union bargaining team, because it's a lot of work and time that went into this in good faith, which is great. I got to observe a couple of those, and I'm really happy with this, especially as we enter transformation.
Absolutely.
So it's important that this be dialed for 3 years.
Right. It was great.
I just had one quick clarification. That was like so much that you went through really fast right there. When you were talking about grade changes, are you talking about for a student if there's a protest or a discrepancy?
Yep.
Okay.
With regard, so
that has
an
to go to the
administrator won't
administrator
just
level.
override and do it. They're going to work with the teacher.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Just curiosity about the slide on caseloads. How do the caseloads stated in the slide compare to current reality?
If I remember, and I'm going completely off of memory, we tried to use current caseloads, and that's why they are every effort not to exceed. Obviously, there are going to be some instances where we're going to be above. So, school psychs, for example, I can't say off the top of my head how many we have for the district, and so that's all dependent. But I think we're within the ballpark. Mm-hmm.
And does that caseload formula include if there is EA support or not in the classroom?
I believe it's just the licensed.
It's just the license
Yeah.
only. Okay.
Yeah, I believe.
And because I know in our budget we had a targeted classroom size. Is it appropriate to think of caseload as the same as classroom size?
In both, we look at just the students assigned to a teacher.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Our next,
Do we need to adopt?
Oh, yeah, I would certainly love a vote.
yeah. I would entertain a motion to approve.
I heartily approve. Well, I heartily move that we approve.
I will.
I am in
heartily-
favor.
I can heartily second to move to approve. Yeah.
All right, all in favor? Okay. Our next several action items will be presented by Steve Mitzel, Director of Operations.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't mean to jump up here so soon, but it turns out that I was needed. Yeah, these are, if you've been part of the bond process for the last 7 years, these are pretty standard operating procedure. Let me close all these windows really quick. Okay. Yeah, I'll just do them one at a time. I'm just going off the agenda. Holy smokes, there's a lot of stuff coming up. So this is the first one. Yeah, so this is pretty standard operating procedure. Once we get over a certain amount of dollars that were being spent, we bring it before the board. This first one is a little unique from the others because this one is specifically tied to the Seismic grant that we just received for Helman. And that's a $2.5 million grant, just for reference. And so what this is it's allowing us to continue to use HMK services as owner representative. And the reason that this is so important is that throughout the bond process, HMK has been there right by our side. They're actually instrumental in why we got this money. I mean, they were instrumental in getting the grant written and polished and refined and ready to be submitted. They also make sure, I know if Sherry was on, she would agree with me, they allow us to make sure that we are following all the protocols and being very clean about our RFP process and selecting, contractors throughout this. And then on the backside, these grants, these seismic grants in particular, are very labor intensive on the reporting piece. In order to get your monies, there's a lot of reporting that has to be done, and it has to be compartmentalized in the format that they need. So this is a contract for $105,000, not to exceed $105,000. It's well within the percentage of the whole, $2.5 million. This is, it falls in line with what we've been doing with HMK since 2019. And I strongly encourage us to execute this contract. So, any questions about this one?
Steve, my only question is, do we need to approve all of these separately, or can we do a bulk approval?
I would love to do bulk approval. I'd like this one separately because this one is actually specifically tied to that seismic grant, and then I can do the other 4, I believe, together.
I'm ready to make a motion when you guys are.
Steve, what part of Helman's getting rehabbed? What's
The cafeteria.
the cafeteria?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You have to apply by a building. And there's
Okay.
all kinds of criteria from average occupancy to
Yep.
age of the building to the materials that it's built with. And we're going to keep going after them. I mean,
Sure.
this is something the state's been encouraging, and these buildings that were built in a certain era, they need a little bit of help in this area, and we're happy to do it. So this one's going to have to be tight because we don't have a bond that's sitting there behind us to back us up if we run over. So we're going to have to be really cautious about, designing it well, getting the contractors in place well, and controlling the costs so we don't run off on anything. And it's going to be another one of those summer projects we try to start in June and wrap up in the middle of August. So next summer will be another one of those summers for us. So
Okay, so that was going to be my only question. So we got this grant for 2.5 million. Do we expect that to be adequate to cover the work that needs
Yes.
to be done?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
yeah, and we will design and build to that
Okay.
dollar amount. Yeah.
Thank you.
And this one's just an action to approve HMK
Yes.
to be the owner's representative. We don't have the dollars and cents in this one.
Nope. This is just for HMK to help represent us.
I move to approve.
Second that. Second.
All in favor?
Okay, thank you. So the next 4, well, let me answer the question that you had earlier, Rebecca, about the facilities. If you just pull the awning out, all the rest of them are covered by bond dollars. And I think that's important because we are going through a transformation and we're being very cognizant of how we're spending our money, and we want to make sure that we're not spending money that we don't currently have. And this is coming out of that unallocated that we had at the end of the bond, and we'll continue to work through that with these projects. A lot of these projects were identified either as, we'll get to that as soon as we get everything else done. Some of them were a part of the project that we stripped out because we had to do some value engineering and say, hey, we like, for instance, the Walker Gym. We had an X amount of money from the seismic grant that we could spend there, and those doors were going to cost us about $80,000 then. They're about $80,000 now. We decided to just hold off on that because we couldn't fit it within the budget at the time. So we just kind of stuck a pin in it and said that's one of those things we'll take care of afterwards. So same thing with the boiler at the high school gym. That's been limping along for a long time, and we said if we have any money when we're done here, that's going to be the first one that gets replaced, and so that one's on the docket. The alarms between the middle school and the 7th and 8th grade building and the gym and the new construction, that's something we wanted to do at the time. We have a new alarm system in the new construction, and there's still the old existing alarm in the 7th and 8th grade building and the gym. They don't talk to each other, so that's a challenge and can be a safety issue. So we're finally tying those two together. It was cost prohibitive at the time, and we're able to do that now. And then the carpets, again, at the high school, second floor. Some of those classrooms got carpet replaced last year when we did the seismic renovation, where we were penetrating the floors in those classrooms. We decided to just replace the entire carpet. Now we're finishing the rest of those classrooms on that floor. And the next year we'll tackle the library at the high school. So. Concrete, same thing. These are some things that we identified as we were getting close to it. We were adjacent to it. It's like, can we just sneak that into the project somehow? And dollars and cents didn't work out. So we said, we'll just hold off on that, see if we have any money left. And if there is, we'll tackle it at the end. Things like the concrete out in front of district office. It's needed to be replaced for a really long time. And now we have the budget to do it. So bundled all that in, added some asphalt and a few other things. And that's what these projects are, is those trailing and or continuation of those bond projects. So I don't know if you want me to open up every one of them or if you want to.
Well, just in the interest of, us sleeping at night,
Sure.
the total for all this, I'm sure you have sort of some general lump sum of what this will be. How much will then be left in the bond money, I guess? Just what's our,
Let me do the rough math, but we are, I want to say we are about $3.6 million, and I'm not spending $1 million this summer. So I can get you the exact numbers if you'd like. How about we give you a report at the end of summer when we're done with all the projects and we know exactly what we spent and it's been billed out, and we'll tell you what the balance is, because I will probably push a pause button through the school year to just focus on school, and then we'll come back to this next spring when we're going into that next construction window.
no, that's great. I just like a really
Yeah.
general ballpark of where we stand. So,
Yeah, so
thank you.
3.6, and I think these projects here are all total less than $1 million, I believe.
Great, thank you.
Question for our superintendent. What's the dollar threshold that requires board approval?
It depends on where you look. Policy says 75,000. The resolution we just passed says 100,000. So, depends.
I will say with the cost of doing business going up, I'm more than happy to relook at that number as well to make Steve's life a little easier.
There are
I am
actually
too, but-
districts that have increased it to 250.
I would say even at 250, and we had the luxury of doing that during some of the bond period. I personally think it's a good reporting mechanism to the community. And while it does feel laborious sometimes, and I appreciate that, I've had to go back in time and look at these videos and present them to somebody who's challenged me. And so I almost would rather we do this so that it's there and it's transparent. But as long as we're sticking to policy, I think we're fine. But don't change it on my behalf, because I actually appreciate putting it before you and allowing you to be a part of that decision-making process.
I think what I will do is bring the policy forward to align with the resolution we just passed. Yeah.
And I'm ready to make a motion. I move to approve the contracts under agenda items 12C, 12D, 12E, and 12F.
I second.
All in favor?
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve. All right. Moving right along, we have announcements and appointments. And in this, I'm going to defer to Rebecca Dyson.
Okay, so I'm going to take one last duty back here because I scrawled all over this paper and nobody else can read my handwriting. So we went through board appointments for the coming year. We have 4 positions that we're looking at. These do not need to be voted on. These are just simple appointments. The number 1 is the Superintendent Advisory Committee, which is a policy work group. And we will continue having Dan and Deltra in that position. And I want to thank you guys because I know you do a lot of very important work there. So we appreciate that. Number 2 is a liaison to the Superintendent Advisory Council. And Deltra would like to take that. And Jordan said she would be happy to be
Just to clarify, that's a liaison to the Transformation Steering Committee.
Transformation, what, did I say it wrong? Oh, sorry. The Transformation Steering Committee. This is why you're taking over. Okay, so this will be somebody who just, this is not somebody who participates in the council. This is just somebody who is a liaison between the board to make sure that we have representation at these meetings with 1 or 2 observers. Next is the Ashland Schools Foundation Board Liaison, and Dan Ruby would like to continue there. And the final one is our Board Legislative Liaison, and Russell will be continuing with that. For all of these, and especially for this Legislative Liaison, I want to say that, I mean, these are very informal appointments, and you guys obviously are great about substituting in when needed, and we always appreciate everybody's input. I would say especially I want to take a nod to Dan, who very often gives us updates on legislative items pertaining especially to equity and LGBTQ issues, so we really appreciate that, and we encourage everybody to take a part in that. So I believe that is it. Hopefully I got it all right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. The board will not hold a work session in July. The board will hold its next regular session on Thursday, August 13th, 2026 at 6:30 p.m. right here in the City Council chambers. And with that, we are adjourned.